Hello, welcome to F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you're an F1 fan, then of course you are in the right place. Hit the like and the bell so you can stay up to date. I don't know how I was talking for over a minute then with no sound, and nobody let me know. Apart from Gemma. Thanks, Gemma. So yeah, we're talking about Ferrari. And we're talking about Lewis Hamilton. He's literally upset the Ferrari team again with some of his comments. And we're also going to get into Oscar Piastri, some comments that have come out from McLaren, basically saying Oscar doesn't know how to drive on low grip circuits. That's pretty damning. But we are going to get into all of it. So do stay with us and have your say in the chat. And if you watch on replay, get in the chat and I'll always respond to you. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into what has Lewis Hamilton been doing to upset his Ferrari mechanics. So this is all come from Austin, right? So Austin's obviously a big Hamilton track. You know, he's won 5 times there. He was hoping to probably do a little bit better than Charles Leclerc. But the Ferraris did okay in Austin, right? We have to say that. The Ferraris did okay. To finish 3rd and 4th is decent. You know, it's good points scoring for the team. I just think Hamilton probably, as his record there is so strong, I think this would have been the Grand Prix where he would have liked to have beaten Charles Leclerc. That didn't happen, but what he did say was to the media when asked questions, he said, well, the last 5 races of the season are basically test races, and now his Ferrari engineers have been quite taken aback by that, and they're pretty angry because they do not see these last 5 races as test races for the 26 car. They do want to get P2 in the constructors. So yeah, they are trying to do what they can. Even though there aren't any major upgrades coming for the car, there are setup tweaks that are available, and they are doing their best to help Hamilton and Leclerc have another weekend like they did in Austin, Texas, to continue scoring points in order to win, that's the wrong word, in order to achieve 2nd place in the constructors. But Hamilton's comments of saying that Ferrari basically are using these last 5 races as test races has annoyed the mechanics, and that story's coming out from F1 Oversteer. But here's the thing, while we're talking about Lewis Hamilton, here's what I actually think. So yes, Lewis Hamilton is not backward in coming forward when he's commenting about he tells the truth, right? Lewis tells the truth, and it pisses people off at Ferrari. He tells the truth about the state of the car. He tells the truth about the state of the upgrades. He tells the truth about the way the team operate on race weekends, how they operate and communicate within different departments at Ferrari. And he's trying to change things there. That's why they pay him $40 million a year. They wanted him to come in and try and win a world championship. And he's come from Mercedes, where he's won, and McLaren, obviously, where he's won 7 world championships. He knows how to win a world championship. And not only does he know how to win a world championship, he knows what it takes for the team to win a world championship. And he's trying to impose some of those standards there at Ferrari. And the thing is, I think it's time to listen to him. Yeah, I know, controversial. Listen to the driver, right, on how to develop and bring that team forward. But yeah, it's time for Ferrari to listen to Lewis Hamilton, because he's won more world championships than any of you there that are currently in that team. He knows what it takes from a team point of view and a driver point perspective to win a world championship. And that's why you paid him the big bucks. I mean, it's why Fred Vasseur actually went all out to get Lewis Hamilton. Not just because he thought he was a great driver. It's because I think Fred Vasseur's out of his depth at Ferrari. So bringing in someone like Lewis Hamilton was exactly what Ferrari might need to do in order to bring back winning ways for the prancing horse. But if you're going to bring in Lewis Hamilton, you got to listen to him now. Like, it's time. You know, you have to listen to him. He tells the truth, and he's trying to get his car for 26 to be a good car. And if he is sending documents to everyone in the Ferrari factory on how to communicate better, listen to him. If he is calling out engineers and team management on the pit wall for sending the Ferrari out in qualifying at the wrong time, where tyre temperatures would drop by 5 degrees, listen to him. Seriously, it is time to maybe start listening to Lewis Hamilton. I know it's controversial, but you can't. Fred Vasseurs not bringing much to the table. Charles Leclerc's a solid driver and he's bringing speed to the table. But Charles hasn't won a world championship. He's only really known Ferrari. So, yeah, it's time to allow Lewis to bring his experience into the team, and you need to start helping him shape the team. And I'm not talking about shaping the car, because between him and Leclerc, you know, the feedback from them will help you shape the car, because that's one thing. But let Lewis help you shape the team. Let him help with the communication problems that he's been pointing out. Listen to his suggestions, because he might just be right. And the one thing we can say with absolute certainty is Fred Vasseurs not getting it right. And there's no leaders in that team that you can hang your hat on and go, I will listen to him, apart from your 7-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton. Listen to him. You might as well. And I think Fred should take it on board, because if Fred is like literally just legs under the water, swan on top, like desperately trying to get the reins on this Ferrari team, it's now time, Fred, to make your life easy. Let Lewis do the heavy lifting. He's telling you the improvements that need to be made. Roll them out. Execute what he's asking for. And I love that point, Kyle. Kyle says Hamilton's mentor was Niki Lauda, and drivers like Lauda and Senna would get heavily involved in the mechanics of the car. But is that possible today without an engineering degree? I think it's more than that, Kyle, and I completely agree. Hamilton's mentor is Niki Lauda, and Niki Lauda was across all parts of Ferrari, from the engineering but to how the team actually operated. Can a driver still have that same impact? I would say yes, to a degree. Lewis Hamilton, coming from winning all those world championships, he will know what worked at Mercedes, not just what worked in the development of upgrades, not just what worked in the communication between departments, but literally the entire team. He would see what worked, and also from a driving point of view, what he needed to work. So all of those moving parts, I do think Lewis would have been across. So yeah, I do think I do think that Lewis could have a significant impact on the areas of that team that need to improve. And even from a 30,000 foot view, Lewis just looking at the team, he'll be able to see some glaringly obvious improvements. I mean, his I want to call it a dossier of improvements that he wrote down and sent to all the key people in Ferrari. He was covering from race weekend, how they operate on a race weekend. He was also covering how they operate from department to department, from communications, how the speed of upgrades and how they get actioned. I mean, he was literally doing an audit of the entire team. Now, some of that stuff must be good. I really believe that some of that information must be good, because whatever they're doing at the moment is not working. And Hamilton really is shining a light. And so is Leclerc, to be fair. They are shining a light on these problems. They're showing the problems on race weekend. They're telling the world that they've asked for certain upgrades on the car that Ferrari couldn't deliver or wouldn't deliver. So yeah, it's time to listen to Lewis. I'm going to get the chat. Hey, Chef, welcome to F1 Grandstand. Welcome to the chat. Very nice to have you with us. That was a differently managed Ferrari era. Well, listen, you're right. Obviously, the way Formula One teams have developed since 80s and 90s. There's hundreds of more staff, hundreds of more computers and software engineers. The detail with every part is there's a committee really on designing, from a suspension strut to a wishbone to, I mean, everything's got bigger and more precise, right? But so a driver might not be able to work carbon fiber, okay, but or know the right composite strengths to have on certain parts, but he is able to sort of, with his language, able to execute a request and go, I want the front end to be more rigid. I want it to be more aggressive, and whatever that and then that conversation between him and the engineers is supposed to take that information from the driver and go, well, how do I achieve that? He has to get an understanding of what the driver wants the car to feel like, and that's what he will deliver using his gifts of engineering. So it's got more complicated, but the basics are still the same. Driver wants something, mechanics want something. A car can look good in a simulator, but it might be an absolute pig to drive. Or then we might get someone like Max Verstappen who can drive a car that's so aggressive and so the front end grip is so strong that everyone else struggles with it. But Max just knows how to find the balance. I mean, but yeah, I agree with Chef. It was a different era, but do I think a driver can still have that same influence on the team? To an extent, I would say yes. Kyle says, they say Schumacher was a great team builder. He knew everyone's birthday spouse. Yeah, but I actually think Schumacher wasn't a bad mechanic either. Brilliant driver, but I think he had an understanding of the mechanics of a Formula One car. I'm not saying he could, build you a component, but did he understand what components did what, and was he able to sort of help shape that team from a motivational point of view? Yeah, that's what Schumacher did. Schumacher knew everyone's name, everyone in the factory's name. He knew their birthdays. He sent them nice gifts. Like, yeah, and I'm not saying it was all sort of altruistic or, charitable. He wanted that team to give him the best car they possibly could. So they listened to him, didn't they? And lo and behold, they win world championships. And that's the key. Ferrari at the moment, who are they listening to? There's no point listening to John Elkann, who's the chairman of Ferrari. There's no point listening to him, right? And there's no point listening to whoever's head of the road car division. You've got to listen to somebody. And unfortunately, I think they've got Fred Vasseur leading the team. And I just don't believe he's bringing a leadership that people believe in. So you've got all these heads of department that are supposed to look up to your team principal and go and be under his guidance and his supervision at his request, and it's not happening. So yeah, you may as well listen to Lewis Hamilton. Fred can't speak Italian. Is that true? Fred can't speak Italian. He can, can't he? He can speak French. I think he can speak Italian, surely. I think Lewis is learning Italian, or has learnt some Italian. But Lewis can afford an interpreter to walk around with him, can't he? Get some, Italian, someone who's Italian language teacher, walk around with him. But I do think they need to start listening to him. So all these engineers that are getting pissed off with Lewis Hamilton for telling the truth, I think you need to wind your necks in. This is what I honestly believe. I believe that they need to stop. They need to stop getting upset with Lewis Hamilton and flip the script and actually start listening to him. I think he's your best chance. I actually think he's your best chance, honestly, Ferrari, of actually finding a way. If you're not going to replace Fred Vasseur with like a Christian Horner, well, you're going to have to allow Lewis Hamilton to start help guiding this team forward, because someone needs to do it. And I think Lewis wants to do it because he doesn't want to be embarrassed next year. So yeah, They might all be a little bit pissed off. The engineers might all be fighting. Some of the engineers who are fighting with Fred Vasseur. We all need to just, like, do you know what I mean? You got to follow somebody. You may as well follow Lewis. Oh, so Kyle says, yeah, Fred is learning Italian, but he's not fluent. I bet his Italian is far better than any of ours, though, right? Arrivederci. And then Chef says, this is exactly why Ferrari elected to not re-sign Alonso. Alonso started to publicly call out the team. Exactly. And you know, and funny you should mention Alonso, Chef, because he's doing it. He did it with Aston Martin this weekend in Austin, Texas. Not in a bad way. He just told the truth. He said, because he was getting asked, he was getting interviewed about scoring 1 point for Aston Martin, getting P10. Tough weekend. Yeah. So Alonso was saying, well, we started off the weekend well. We seemed to have pace, and then our pace we got worse throughout the weekend. And the journalist basically said, well, you know, where do you think you're like a P8 team, P7 team? And he said, well, we're actually, I'd say, a P9 team this weekend. And Aston Martin came out and said after that interview, said, well, maybe Fernando was a little bit harsh with the P9 team. I'd say we were more P7, more of a P7, P6 team. You know, we're currently P7 in the team standings, but we are gunning for the opportunity to finish maybe P6 in front of Racing Bulls, because they've got 3 points on us. So that's the idea. They want to finish ahead of Racing Bulls. So Aston Martin basically they were cool about it, but Fernando Alonso is the same sort of driver as Lewis Hamilton. He tells the truth. He's 45 next year. You know, he's been in the sport forever. Like, he's not going to lie. So, and what he's basically saying is, fuck yeah, my 1 point for Aston Martin in Austin, Texas was a good result. Because this team, right, is a P9 team. So, yeah, of course it was a good result. Scoring a point was good. And also, fair to Lance Stroll to come up from P18 to P12. Good result for him as well. You know, but that's what I'm saying. So, Fernando Alonso, exactly, at Ferrari, said the same thing. You can't, you know, brand Ferrari, as soon as people push back against brand Ferrari, they absolutely want to close all the walls, close all the doors, shut the windows, don't let anything out. We want our narrative to be our narrative. And do you know what? With certain drivers, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, people like Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher to an extent, I'd say as well. He did toe the Ferrari line really well, but then he was a world champion for them, wasn't he? So, yeah, Kimi Raikkonen. But Kimi Raikkonen was the best because when he was pissed off, he wouldn't slag anyone off. He just wouldn't talk. He would just give one-word answers in his interviews, which is brilliant. But yeah, that's basically the situation. And I think Ferrari do need to start listening to them because there's no one there to lead the team. So I think, yeah, so that's my take on the engineers being upset with Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari again. Like, just wind your necks in. Listen to him. Try listening to him, and you might have a chance of winning some Grand Prix next season. So I'm backing Lewis. I'm supporting you in this. Yeah, and keep telling the truth, because that's what, as fans, that's what we want. Tell us the truth, right? Tell us what's going on. That is what we want. So, right, so that's Lewis covered. But speaking of truth, the next story tonight is it's about our man Oscar Piastri. So Oscar Piastri, I feel he's been getting thrown under the bus again by McLaren. This is a story coming from F1 Oversteer. Okay, so I'm going to cover it. McLaren basically will unpick it. Let me start. Basically what they're saying is Oscar Piastri should be worried as his biggest problem could haunt his title chances in Mexico City. But why? So a little bit of background. So since his win at Zandvoort, he's not managed to beat Lando or Max. He finished behind his McLaren teammate in Monza due to controversial team orders. As we know, he got ordered to switch places. And obviously Max Verstappen claimed victory. And then really, you know, crashed in Baku, behind Norris in Singapore, and obviously he finished 5th in Austin. So not good. But they've been trying to work out what it is. So this is what McLaren say. McLaren say, Oscar Piastri struggled with low grip in the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, and that problem will repeat in Mexico. What? This is McLaren saying that. Because they had to alter, because they had a ride height problem in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas, because they both crashed out in the sprint race, McLaren say they couldn't fine-tune the ride height of Oscar's and Lando's car. So they had to err on the side of caution. So that meant higher ride height, less ground effect, less grip. And with the Circuit of the Americas being a low grip track, they said Oscar Piastri struggles on low grip tracks. I mean, the next race is the Mexican Grand Prix. And it's a track with very low grip because of the altitude of the track. So what McLaren is saying is that it's going to be a problem for Piastri. And they're basically outing him, saying that our driver Piastri is going to struggle again in Mexico because he can't drive in low grip. But they're also saying at the same time that Lando Norris, who finished P2 in the Circuit of Americas and really took Oscar to school all weekend, well, he could drive the car with low grip. He was fine. It's a driver skill problem. It blows my mind. If you're McLaren and your drivers are fighting out for the World Drivers' Championship, you do not publicly say it's a driver skill problem, and that skill problem is going to reappear in Mexico. You are literally messing with him at a psychological level where you're basically on the reverse saying to Lando, hey, Lando, you can handle these low grip tracks. Oscar's got a skill problem. Tell everyone you're backing Lando without telling everyone you're backing Lando. That's an insane thing to say to the press. Even if Oscar Piastri can't drive on a low grip track, the fact that you're outing him in the press is insane. Like, why would you do that? Why would Andrea Stella do that? Why would Zach Brown allow that? Like, it's almost like, why would your team point out a weakness if it is a weakness? And if it's not a weakness, or if I as the driver don't think it's a weakness, I don't want you telling me it's a weakness in the press, because I've not heard Oscar Piastri come out in the press and go, hey, do you know what, guys? I am the best driver in the world. However, I struggle on low grip tracks. It's insanity to point those things out. And as a driver, there's no way you'd say that. There's no way you'd say that. So for your team to basically say, Lando Norris showed his skills, Oscar Piastri showed his skills, that's why Lando Norris finished P2 in Austin, Texas, and it's why Piastri finished P5 and had a horrible weekend, and then to come out and say, and by the way, next weekend in Mexico is not going to be any better. I mean, Jesus Christ, that you can't do that. I think McLaren really need to put out a better statement about Oscar Piastri and sort of deny that to be the truth, because that is not good. Fred, I'm going to the chat. Fred, I want the truth. Lewis, you can't handle the truth. A few good men at Ferrari. I love it. But I don't know what's going to happen at McLaren. They need to sort this out, because Oscar Piastri, mental games going on within his half of the garage. His half of the garage are literally saying that, you know, Oscar's got a skill issue if it's a low grip circuit. So here's the thing. If you think your driver does have an issue on a low grip circuit, you set the car up with far more downforce, right? To give him more grip. You sacrifice straight line speed for grip, right? In the setup. You might even be able to produce an alternative wing for these low grip circuits. But McLaren are basically saying, we've won the World Constructors. Nah, we're not going to fabricate you anything. There's nothing we can do. There's no more upgrades coming, even though Red Bull are bringing more upgrades. And Helmut Marko has basically said, we've got another good upgrade. Will it be as good as that floor upgrade, which has changed the game with their allowing them to run at a much lower ride height? I don't know, but they're still coming. Helmut Marko is basically saying Verstappen is coming for you, and he's on a charge to win the World Drivers' Championship, where McLaren are basically throwing their driver, who is leading the World Drivers' Championship, under the bus with their comments where they say, yeah, problem in Austin, Texas, the car was fantastic. It's just Oscar. He can't drive when there's not much grip. And he's not going to do well in Mexico either, because there's not going to be much grip there either. So maybe we're back in Lando Norris, because he seemed to be okay. He managed to, put that car P2 and to finish P2. Outrageous. It's like, I always think that if you're running an F1 team, if you go out with your mates and you've got that mate and you got your drivers, you got your team, but you've got that mate, haven't you, who will go out and he'll cause trouble sometimes. And before you know it, when you were younger, you might have got in a fight. You wouldn't know why, but that mate's got you in. You've not asked questions why you're in that fight. You're just having the fight. And afterwards, after that brawl's happened, fisticuffs have happened, you're walking home and going, dude, what was that about? You don't even know what you were fighting for, right? But you back him anyway. When you were like a teenager, that's what you did. Now, I'm not condoning violence, by the way. It's just to give you a metaphor. If you are part of a team, even if you think someone in your team's, got a weakness, you back him, don't you? Loyalty. You got to back your guy. You've got to be all in on Oscar. You've got to. He's leading the World Drivers' Championship. You've got 5 races left, and you've got Max Verstappen literally frothing at the mouth because he can smell blood. And you've got his Red Bull team supporting him, going, hey, yeah, Max can do this. And we're bringing him upgrades. And we're giving him everything we can to help Max win the World Drivers' Championship. Like, look, McLaren are going to have to consider, to stop Max Verstappen, they're going to have to consider having a number 2 driver, right? To block him, to slow him down. Because if you want Oscar Piastri to win the World Drivers' Championship, he's 14 points ahead of Lando. At some point, if he stays ahead of Lando, then at some point Lando's got to be, he's got a block. He's almost got to play that role to protect Piastri's lead, so they can win the World Drivers' Championship. At some point, that decision's going to happen, and maybe that decision would happen if it was Lando Norris who was leading the World Drivers' Championship and not Oscar Piastri. Now that's the real question. If Lando Norris was in Oscar Piastri's position, would McLaren have issued a team order for Piastri to play backup to Lando to provide protection against Max Verstappen? I mean, what do you think? I think it's a fair argument. I do. I definitely think it's possible that if it was the other way around, and we'll see, because if we see a shift, if we see a situation where Oscar Piastri doesn't finish in Mexico, Lando Norris scores good points and passes Oscar Piastri in the World Drivers' Championship, will we see a change at that point where Oscar Piastri is ordered to play the number 2 role in order to help prevent Max Verstappen from catching Lando? There's definitely shenanigans afoot. But get in the chat, if you watch on replay, tell me what you think. But there's definitely shenanigans afoot. 100%. So yeah, that's been today's F1 news. I just want to give you a reminder what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow we are doing the Mexico Grand Prix preview show at 7:30. Think about your predictions. Who do you think is going to finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the race? Who do you think is going to have? Who's going to be your driver of the weekend? I've changed it. From driver of the day to driver of the weekend because it makes more sense. And who is going to be your dipstick of the weekend? Who's going to have a stinker in Mexico? According to McLaren, It's going to be Oscar Piastri. But there you go. I want you, Kyle's already in. Don't tell me now. You got to tell me tomorrow night, 7:30. You're going for dipstick of the weekend is going to be Stroll. We can't all go Stroll bashing. But he might be mine as well, to be honest. He might actually be my guess. If McLaren tell Piastri to support Lando, if points change, he needs to accidentally let Max pass. Yeah, crack kite. Because I think that could happen. Truthfully, we could see that happening. Because, you know, if Piastri has an absolute nightmare in Mexico to get to DNF and Lando passes him in the Drivers' Championship, then yeah, I could see team orders coming in at that point where Lando needs to play the good number 2 driver and help interfere that sounds awful. Piastri needs to interfere with Max, but he does. He needs to interfere with Max's game plan because Max, he is frothing at the mouth and he smells blood and he is coming for McLaren. He's coming for Lando and he's coming for Oscar. And you know, it's looking more and more likely, isn't it, as every weekend goes by? Because the one thing I know is Max is going to be quick. He's going to be quick in Mexico. That Red Bull's looking brilliant. You know, since they've solved this this ride height issue with the new floor and the plank wear, it's clever. The car's performing like a completely different car. You know, they've got it exactly where they need it. So yeah, tomorrow night, I want your predictions. We're going to be predicting driver of the weekend for Mexico, dipstick of the weekend for Mexico, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the race. Those are the predictions. Have them ready for tomorrow night. I'm going to write them down as well. I'm going to write down your predictions, get them in the chat, and we need to predict them tomorrow because I know Destroy Television, he likes to try and change his predictions on race day. We're not doing that. So we'll do all of our predictions tomorrow and we'll see where we end up. But listen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. That's been your daily F1 news here on F1 Grandstand. Please smash a like on the video. Hit the bell. Keep up to date. It makes a massive difference to the channel. And I will see you at 7:30 GMT tomorrow night for our Mexico Grand Prix preview show. Ta-ta!